Breaking news, South Korean police and military are swarming the country's parliament after the president declared emergency martial law. President Yoon Suk-yeol announced the step in a televised briefing, saying it was critical for defending the country's constitutional order. Yoon has accused his political opponents in parliament of sympathizing with North Korea, saying they've paralyzed the government with anti-state activities. Now those opposition parliament ministers are trying to force a vote to lift the martial law. Let's bring in foreign correspondent Marcus Moore, along with ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy for more. Marcus, what's the latest?
Well, hey, Diane, this has been developing and moving very fast, quite quickly. Today, South Korea's president declaring an emergency martial law to, quote, he says, protect the country from the threat of North Korean communist forces. We've seen extraordinary images of what's been happening in South Korea at the moment. You can see there the people who've gathered outside the National Assembly building there. These are, some of them are protesters. Others, we understand, are members of parliament who have been trying to get into the building there to force a vote that would reverse or that would stop this martial law. We've seen images of soldiers and heavily armed police arriving there at that building, and then you also see the large crowds that have now gathered. Diane, it does seem like a very tense situation with those armed officers and military members on the ground. Also, images of helicopters in the air. In terms of what this martial law means in practical terms, we understand that it would prohibit political activity, i.e. the vote that they are trying to force, the opposition members are trying to force at the moment. Also, protests would be banned. They would be illegal. So you're looking at a situation where there could be mass arrests and other events. And also, Diane, just very quickly, we understand, according to local reporting, that doctors, trainee doctors, for example, have been told to return to work in the next 48 hours, perhaps giving you a sense of what could come in the days ahead. We certainly hope there won't be violence, but it would seem like that there's preparation underway for that eventuality if it does devolve into that. Diane.
Mick, what do you make of these allegations that the opposition is sympathizing with North Korea?
So, Diane, as Marcus says, this really did happen quickly and it seemingly by surprise. And that might indicate that it was based on some kind of actionable intelligence that the South Korean government had, President Yoon had, to really understand whether that is the case, whether this is some kind of destabilizing action by the North Koreans. I think the U.S. intelligence community is going to be doing immediate assessment on all information available and probably briefing the White House as soon as possible, likely this afternoon, on what they think the real situation here, whether this is just a crackdown on the opposition, whether this is actually a North Korean inspired event that they were reacting to. It's simply too early to tell. That's one of the reasons why we need really solid intelligence around the world to be able to make the decisions that policymakers need to make in these type of critical occurrences.
So, Mick, what are you watching for as parliament ministers try to now force this vote to end the martial law?
Well, I would look, of course, whether this becomes violent and how it becomes violent, and whether this ban on the media looks to be more of an oppression, which it usually is, and it is somewhat troubling. And then, of course, I would look for the White House to really indicate whether we, the U.S. intelligence community, believes this was a foreign-generated event or an internal domestic issue, and that should really lead our policy. So I'm looking to hear from the White House, probably announced this afternoon, of what our initial assessment is for what is going on in South Korea.
All right, Mick Mulroy, Marcus Moore, thank you both.